would just have conversations and debates and stuff, and they were all dependent on American citizens to be like, hold up the fight, don't fold, don't fold, don't fold. Now, I think we did fight, a good majority of us, and we didn't fold into the whole, like, if people didn't fight, they would have kept up with passports to eat and passports to fly, like for
we'd be getting paid by tax credits basically if they had their if it would have been able to do to have any part of it on a large scale stick.
And then what proved that the people didn't want it is like California. People were max exodus. They were just leaving, going to Texas, going to Florida, come to Arizona too. Now I
still are.
So I just don't want that also locust like feeling where like you ate up all the food in your land and you realize your land sucks now and you want to move somewhere else and you're going to eat it all up there and you're going to destroy that land and move on to another and destroy that land. Like, understand why you left, and you don't want the same type of rules in this new place. And just because it's a color, you shouldn't go, well, I need to vote that way again, and you're just going to ruin another land.
Yeah, I know. And I think that that's one of those things that, you know, people just, you know, they fear to go outside of their, you know,
their cult.
Their color, outside of their color, their blue or red color. And, you know, when you should be doing it, you know, for your own, you know, for your own way that you think, you know, and that's just, I mean, it's fascinating on how many people are sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you got these people at the top. So what was it? Soros, right? He's funding all of these district attorneys, these mayors. He's like putting in these extreme, so far left people that like the things they're coming up with and these rules are coming up with were insane. But he funds them so much. I don't know if you've ever seen any kind of like the stories about him when he grew up and what his life was like, but he turned on his own people, and he had to basically point out all the Jewish people to like the Nazi Germany, and he would give them up and they would just kill him. That was his job. And then he loves tearing down countries. Like, there's so many countries he's not even allowed to be in now because of how his attempt is to destroy the country. But America, we just let it happen. There's just...
and that's just one of how many?
Oh,
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That, you know, that fund, you know, certain agendas.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think there's no hiding the fact that he wants America destroyed, or at least burned down and rebuilt.
Well, I think
to his liking.
I think it's pretty much any free thinking place on Earth. You know, it's just basically off of, you know, what he and the people that surround him want to be done globally. You know, because it's not just our country that exists in.
So what they're saying here, I'm reading some of this, and like they want everybody to be at the same level, and I don't think you're going to do that with, you know, having a country like America where what is the average wealth in America? It's got to be like 3 or 4 times what most other countries are. Like your average person's like net worth. Right?
Yeah, and I again, I don't know the exact stats on that, but I mean, but then what do we have? Quite a substantial
billionaires
billionaires, and then also poverty as well.
Right.
We have
such high lows and high highs.
Yeah,
your middle class is going quick.
Very.
Like that was one of your small business owners and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then the voice that's being heard, you know, primarily is the voice of few and not the voice of many.
Yeah.
And isolationism, you know, isolate these people and, you know, make them feel like, you know, they're the ones being attacked, when in reality, you know, that's really something that's being created. That isn't necessarily what is really, you know, happening out there, you know, in the majority, you know, but the voice of the few, you know, make the rules anymore, you know, instead of, you know, working together and being, you know, being one people, you know, on so many different levels. You know, I mean, that's a pretty large topic in itself, but, you know, people shouldn't be feeling like they're alone and feeling isolated. That's the biggest part. And there needs to be, you know, how do we get back to, you know, bringing people together instead of making people, pit people against each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so like right here, it's talking about the agenda is to make everyone equal, right? I'm reading this. The women and girls, they want balance of power, right? But it's so funny how they say that, but then yet they're also willing to let men compete against women in sports. It just, it's so, you could see through their lies of what they really want when they make these statements, but then they don't back it up, like with the equality of empowerment, right? Just like here, so they said, individual balance for 3 dimensions of sustainable development in economic, social, and environmental. So, but they said that they want women and girls to have the same amount of empowerment. But you can't do that when men are able to compete in your sports.
Well, yeah, and what they're identifying gender here now too. Oh my gosh.
It's just, I don't care what you want. Like I don't care about any of that. Personally, I care
No,
about
I don't either.
women had a safe place for sports and to succeed and do something, and then it's kind of like they just took them back 30 years and say, here you go. Sorry, men own you again.
Yeah, well, I mean, and there's so many ways that they should be doing it in a even a larger format, but words are words. It's actions of what like they're actually doing to fix the overall problem, but they're not doing that. They're creating all of these other things. They're creating divisiveness of the situation instead of bringing it together. As a whole. It's just it's amazing to me on how how we're allowing that to happen as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And then, so it's like the common person. So what do they call these? Like the 10-mile cities or whatever?
Oh, right. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they want everyone to live and not have a car. They want you to like do your own shopping all within like 10 miles. You shouldn't be like, you should eventually what they want with it. So the basic about a 2030 is they're going to push on this whole climate, right? Climate control. What do you want to call it? What do they call that?
Oh, yeah.
Not global warming anymore. What do they call it?
Well, yeah, they've progressed that to what the heck?
Climate change.
Yeah. Well, yeah, climate change, and
right.
then it's shoot, now I can't remember what they've created a new term for that, so that it's no longer like a harsh term.
Right, but they can travel with their yachts, their planes. Totally you can pay $1 million or $1 billion to go up into space and back. I mean, what does that do to the climate? Nothing.
Well, yeah, but you can buy carbon credits to make it all better. Apparently.
Oh, okay. All right, that's how that works.
Carbon credits.
Carbon credits.
Something you can't even really,
It's just more a way for the elite to be able to say, we can do it, you can't. You're a common person.
This is how we're carbon neutral.
It's never changed since the beginning of time. You have the ones who wants to be the kings, and then you have the common people. And that's how the elite look at us. They're not going to change. They will never change.
They have to figure out a way to control the people, so incite fear of some sort, and therefore you have control.
Right. So prosperity, peace, partnership. All right. So the introduction. Oh, wow. So I love when they go so long. Like, one of the other things I like too is when you look at a bill and they expect them, they get like 2 days sometimes or a day to look at and read through these things. There is so much for them to read. You can't tell me that any one of them have read all those things in there.
Never.
And know what they're voting on.
And you got to love the fact that the few are making the decision for the all, right? And it's going to represent the way that we feel about it too.
Yeah. So like, was it? I think they did a poll, and it was 70% of the population of the people in the United States, voting people, did not want anything to be done or funding the war in Ukraine. And I don't think that was represented at all by the people voting in the bills to pass all this money.
No, not at all. I mean, we didn't get to make a decision on that. All we could do is call up our congressperson, and then it was whatever they ended up having to, put in small print to, make it better for, one side or the other to cram that stuff down our throat. And it's like
the pork. They put the bows on there, and then they get all the shiny little slogans on there, and they're going to tell you this is what the bill's about. It was never about that. It was about the hidden things they wanted to slide in on the back that they didn't want to tell you. More funding for this, more money for this. And
yeah, and
who
how,
gets screwed?
and how something with the border has something to do with, you know, aid to another country. It should be just very cut and dry. You either give the aid and it doesn't have anything else attached to it, or you don't.
Yeah, and that's this BS with the whole right and left, where they got to win something. They always have to win. They can't just concentrate on one subject and fix the one subject.
And who are they winning it for? Is they winning it for us, or are they winning it for themselves or special interest groups?
For their donors.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I can certainly say that most of that stuff wasn't a win for anything that I've had or have going on, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess if you had stock in a military industrial complex, so a lot of was it Lockheed Martin, and I don't know, there's a lot of them, right? But there's a few of them that are making
Raytheon.
Yeah. They're making some pretty good money right now. Probably be a good time to put stock in those. I don't know.
Right.
Just a guess. I don't know.
They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
We're not recommending anything here. We're just saying.
Not at all.
Just somehow they seem to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's not going away. So yeah, like just going through all this.
I really think it's going to be fascinating on how well we, you know, it tracks along with this vision, or how much people, you know, get knowledge and can, you know, make decisions for themselves, and, you know, and wake up and just realize that there is different ways to be looking at all of these, and not just the way that, you know, a group of, you know, elitists or, you know, high level officials are telling us that this is what we're supposed to do, because it's not, because what's good for you, Chris, and what's good for me can be completely different as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why should one group of people be telling us that this is how, you know, globally we're supposed to exist? I mean, come on now.
The scariest thing to me is when one person and or one group is in charge of everything. Now you don't have checks and balances anymore.
Right.
This is why
it's terrifying.
Why I like being an independent, and why, like, if I ever see the right being too much power on one side, I'm going to push a little more. I want the left to have a little more power. I just like balance. I never want to see like a left president with a whole left Congress and House, and that just scares the you know what out of me. Because now now you're in a dictator. You're full dictator, and if you don't agree, you're screwed anyway.
Yeah, it's only one agenda that's being pushed, and that's all you're going to get.
Right. Yeah, that's just the scariest thing in the world to me, and for both sides. I just don't want one side to rule all, and that's why you need.
And I think that
we need more than two parties anyway. We need like 4, 5.
Well, the problem is that you run into the same thing that they run into in the UK, is that then that doesn't represent, you know, the majority anyways, and so then you have a very small fraction, which again is what we're also dealing with. So, you know, it's like, where is the fine line? You know, you have what, 30, 25, 30% of the people making those decisions. You know, when you break it up into so many parties, then the majority really doesn't necessarily have a voice. So, you know, for me, I'm not as big of a fan of that, is because you have so much change, you know, because it doesn't take much, you know, on a voting when, you know, there's 25%, you know, of people that are actually making the decision, you know, for it.
Well, what if we went to everyone gets to vote on each individual subject?
Yeah, there you go. And how do you make sure that those votes are, you know, accurately, you know, taken? But yes,
how do we do that? How do we know that for a presidential?
Well, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. And how do you, you know, and those are the things you got to, you know, somehow they have to establish that, you know, that part of it for the trust. You know,
what a weird name for a voting system, Dominion. To rule over you, and that's the name of the voting system.
Yeah,
and I trust that. I mean,
just the name, right?
Just the name is already freaky, because you know what? So anybody that's done any digging on conspiracies or power elites, you'll always know that they love to put it in your face. They love to not just do it, but they want to let you know they're doing it in front of you, and you still don't catch it.
Well, the easiest thing to do is do that. Make it right in front of you.
We're not hiding anything.
You'll never see it if it's right in front of you, Chris. You know, look, I think that like you know, as we dive down this and kind of explore some of these things, as you know, we go from where we were to where we're going, is understanding, you know, how do people just take the information that's out there, you know, very easily, and make their own decisions on what that means to them. But, you know, don't look at it one way, just look at it, as openly as you can, and then therefore you'll make your own decision on that. And if your decision is that you're going to follow that, to each in their own. But I think that what ends up happening is when you try to look at it as open and, in different perspectives, that I think you end up, I think there'll be some eye-opening things in places that you didn't expect.
Yeah. I mean, just go look at it for yourself. I mean,
yeah, the information's available. Nothing we're going to talk
all I had to do was just search 2030 agenda. That's
right.
it. And then their page pops up.
Nothing we're going to talk about isn't the information that we haven't looked into ourselves and, came to either our own opinions or made our own ideas behind what that means to us, because the impact of all of these things is different to each person, I think is the most important thing.
They always hide everything they're going to do behind all these good acts, but it's not what they're doing.
Well, it's because it's not underneath one thing. It's not just underneath one, great act. There's so many, things that are connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I think so. Basically, what we wanted to get to is 2030 real? I personally believe what they're trying to push for is something real. I think that they are purposely trying to do this, and I don't think it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, well, and for me, it's like, okay, if 2030 is real, I mean, if that's the true, what are ways that, are possibilities to combat it, and I think that that's interesting to look at that and try to look at it very simplistic is how I try to look at it. But, is there a way, Yeah,
I think people not like the best advice my dad gave me. He was a publisher of media, and he told me, don't allow the TV in your house. Just no local media, no TV, no news. Just get your own information, decide for yourself. Or if you're going to watch the one, watch all of them.
Right, yeah, look at it all. I mean,
but I even try to get your sources outside of your control.
Do your own research on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And don't just take the media's perspective. Dig into the actual content and the information that's actually being fed to you. Make educated decisions. Don't make decisions off of what somebody on TV is telling you you're supposed to think.
You ever seen that movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy?
Oh yeah.
My favorite part, and this is, if you haven't seen the movie, at least watch the end. Like, they do all this stuff to somebody's life, and at the end of it, all it was a bet over $1.
Right.
Those at the top love to see what they can do. And it's not that to them, it's more about, can they control you and can they do it in front of your face? And that's like the best drug in the world to them. They love it. They absolutely do. And I think that was one of the coolest scenes in that movie, is to just watch what they did to him and then handshake over $1 at the end of it.
Right. Amazing.
So yeah. I don't think there's any way to little sign off more than.
No, I look forward as we kind of dive into some of this information and dig through it and see what we come up with.
Yeah. I wish we had like a team would be able to get that final scene at the end and just like close out on here with that.
Yeah.
But,
we're not there yet, Chris.
No. We don't even have a producer.
No.
But so like, to me, it's just like, from what you saw from 2020 to today, do you see there's been more power grab? There's been more control of a population. There's been more eliminating the wealth away from the common and then more into the elite. And that's what I'm seeing. So if that's all the case, and it's all about the ones who get to control everybody else and we all have to rent from them, then I believe in 2030, because I believe that's what they're doing. And I think we're going exactly that way.
Yeah, and I think anybody that sees any part of any of that needs to do their due diligence and their research to dig into what how the things that they see that affect them, and where that's coming from.
And I would also say that if you see that, then why would you vote the same way? Why would you vote the same way you did last time if you're seeing this and you go, this is all going down this dictator style of rule, and if I keep voting for these same dictator style people who say they're in there for me, they're not. they're not doing anything other than their interest for themselves. Let's get some fresh blood in there. Let's get some new people in here who are not owned.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I know,
that's
I
going to
know.
be a whole nother. That's a whole nother situation at hand there, man. So
Well, I got like one of my friends. He's running here in Arizona, Matt Greer, and I was wanting to get him on here just so he can kind of like talk, and maybe we can get him on
Yeah.
to have him come on here. I trust this kid, and I call him kid because I'm almost 50. I mean,
Right.
he's young, but he's someone I trust, and I just want to get him on and get his perspective, and I wanted to talk to him of what he thinks that can be done and change. So that's what I mean by getting some new blood in there and some new leaders who are not owned, who really believe that they can do something positive for the people. And
Yeah.
we need to get back to leaders that want to, because
represent the people and not the special interests. And I mean, I think that's
do it for the right reason, like a Tulsi Gabbard, like somebody who really got in there to make a change, but then as soon as she gets in there, she realizes, oh,
there
this
isn't anything you can do.
I mean, maybe
That's ultimately
you'd have to get enough of that in there at once to do something. And maybe if we all just said, "F it, let's just get all new in. Let's get rid of all these old people who are so tied into all this, and let's just break the system that way. You don't got to burn it down.
And
just get new leaders.
And how do you get both sides of people acknowledging that? You know what I mean? Because it's going to take both sides. It takes both sides. It isn't like this is Republican and only issue. This is a Republican Democrat issue.
This is a people issue.
Yeah, it's a people issue. It's a humanity issue, basically.
This is like, here's my fear: is if this 2030 is legit, which I think it is, or what they're trying to do, is the destruction of countries, and it is the moving towards a one world economy, with 10 international nations that are going to run with like realms, and you're going to have like basically 10 kings answer to one true king, and they're all going to treat the common person like a
they'll be able to run it however they want, whenever they want.
Yeah. Yep. And we're going to go back to the same thing we had, where it was kings and then knights, and it's just what it's going to be. It's just what it's going to be. And then your common person's just going to be SOL.
Well, let's hope that it doesn't get to that and we have a great awakening, Chris.
I'd like to see that, but
I believe that we can get there.
Hopefully.
Yep.
It'd be nice.
Well,
all right.
Well, cool, man. Looks like we're about out of our time.
We were supposed to do 20, 30 minutes, but yeah.
Kind of hard to get onto topics and cut it that short. But look, I look forward to our further discussions on what we dive into on as we look forward to this.
Yeah, and any suggestions you want us to get into. I like it, conspiracies, just because, honestly, conspiracies are not staying conspiracies anymore, and they're becoming truths. So I would love to get into, as quickly as I can, to something that might be a conspiracy before it's already proven it's true.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, and then true to who, right?
Yeah.
I mean, true is always kind of one of those slippery little slopes too. So I mean,
yeah, I get it, but you know what I mean. Like with the whole lab leak theory, and then like all these different things that everyone was saying is conspiracy, and then we're finding out. I know.
Look,
everything we're being told is a lie. All of a sudden, comes true later.
Yep. And why is it being controlled?